Bro, I'm watching 2 minutes. I'm not sitting here watching an hour, nigga. You're dumb. Fucking dumb.
My obsession hurts others around me. It's also my fetish, but it goes far deeper than that. I'll try to explain the obsession the best I can, by explaining how it started. Basically, when I was young I caught pinworms. It was a strange feeling and the itch was painful.
Stop referring to him as the perma-mod.
This event is what sparked my obsession. The thought that my body could be their whole world, their lifeline. Almost a planet of sorts. It was so interesting. Pinworms and other parasites. And I found out the human body already hosts parasites, such as Demodex on their eyelashes, and I wanted to know how many a human body could endure without a chance of serious health issues. This curiosity has plagued my mind for years.
I'm
now 25, but I am very well versed in parasites as I have been studying them for over 10 years. I also purposely infect myself with non-lethal parasites because it's part of a fetish of mine. Some have worked better than others. Quite a few have given me serious diarrhea and fevers, while others have been much more bearable. I currently have pinworms and tapeworms, various non-pathogenic protozoa and pubic lice. I am incredibly masochistic,
bro, do y'all not hear that popping noise or what?
From it. All these parasites mean I need to eat a lot more than the average person and I still look thin. And to be quite honest, it means I can enjoy so much more food than most people. I also keep multiple cultures of bed bugs and leeches in containers and allow them to feed on my blood sometimes, although those kinds are not really my passion as they do not live primarily on the human body, but I think they're interesting nonetheless, and I find them pretty cute.
Nigga, answer the question, I cut this bitch off. I stripped that nigga AJ ass naked and removed that mod, bitch. Stop playing with me. Don't play with me, nigga. Answer this correctly or I'm doing that shit right now.
Self anymore. I also have the desire to infect others and I have acted on those desires. Sometimes my parasites just pioneer to new lands on their own. My family have caught pinworms multiple times without my intention, and other times I purposely spread them. I have infected strangers, friends and even my own family. I know it's bad but I just can't stop. I think I have parasites in my brain that makes me feel like I need to spread them. I know how crazy that sounds, but if you knew the feeling you'd understand. Maybe it's just a mental illness, or maybe its origin is parasitic in nature, I really don't know. All I know is it feels good when I do these things. I feel an intense need to spread my children and when I do I feel pleasure. I must have spread thousands of my children over the years. I sometimes sprinkle tapeworm eggs into people's drinks when I'm out at clubs.
Hell no, bro. Whoa. Whoa, he's infecting people with worms. He's dropping worm eggs in people's drinks.
Woman I met at the same club, and in return I'm pretty sure I gave her pinworms, so it was a trade.
Bro, this nigga is weird.
I just wanted to gift her some pinworms, and instead I basically won the jackpot by sleeping with her. I then spread my pubic lice to at least 4 other women. Sometimes I also sprinkle worm eggs onto food and buffets whenever I visit them.
Nigga.
Yes, I understand you would think it's gross and messed up. I'm basically betraying my species for my children.
Yo, this nigga's a
I do enjoy people and I have wonderful friends and family, but I also love my parasites and my fetish is just too hard to control.
No, bro.
I don't want to hurt anyone when I do these things, but a force beyond my understanding is driving me to do it. I think I could possibly have a parasite in my brain that has not yet been discovered. I'm sorry to all the people I have caused discomfort to, but it's for a cause beyond human understanding. Although this all can be justifiable, I still feel guilt. I don't want to hurt anyone. I hope the people I spread my gifts to can find it in their hearts to be a little more open-minded, and not kill my children, but learn to live with them like I have instead. I'm aware how strange and disgusting others will find me if they knew. I'm aware of how immoral this seems to most people. I assume you may see me in a negative light after reading this, but remember I only want what's best for my children, and if you were truly in my shoes I'm sure you would do the same.
They're not your children, weirdo.
I'm putting my extremely profoundly disabled 7-year-old into a residential facility, so I can forget he exists. I'm not sorry. I can't tell anyone this, even my therapist. Lambaste me if you want and maybe I even deserve it. I only ask what you would do if you were in my situation. Not what you think people should do. What you would really do. I'm a single mom of 2 boys, 12 and 7. My husband passed away 3 years ago in a work accident. A very large portion of me believe it was a suicide. I can't see him ever making the mistake he made that caused his death, and he had taken an action just before that which ensured his co-workers weren't in the room. I fully believe he killed himself because of our younger son, and no one will ever change my mind. We were told when I was pregnant that he would have Down syndrome. We could handle that. even if it was severe. It turned out he has a chromosome deletion. His disorder is kind of rare, so I won't post which specific one. But suffice to say, he'll never be anything more than he is now or has ever been. And what he is nothing. He doesn't appear to have any awareness and never has. His eyes are locked in one position. He doesn't respond to noise, touch, or pain. He is total care. He is capable of nothing. He is tube-fed and on oxygen. He is in diapers and will be forever. He makes no sounds, no attempts to communicate. He never even really cried as a baby. He has never made an attempt to interact with anyone or his environment. I'm not upset because I got a
like, it's your kid, like, you supposed to love it, like, treat it right entire life, even if it's fucked up, right? But my nigga, like, it ain't there, but it's kinda fucked up, but it's a vegetable.
Needs an imperfect child. I feel the way I feel because this thing takes up 200% of my time and does nothing. I didn't get an imperfect child. I didn't get a child. I don't love him. He doesn't have any personality, there is nothing to love. And yet I'm responsible for him. In addition to his extreme delays, he's also medically fragile. Respiratory crises, fecal impactions, his autonomic nervous system doesn't function properly, issues with his G2, infections, pressure sores no matter what we put him on or how we position him. Our older son has suffered because his non-existent brother has colored everything in his life. His medical care gets delayed because there's only one of me and his brother is more critical. We do have a visiting home nurse but only 20 hours a week and we aren't eligible for more. I was starting law school, I gave up my dreams and my plan for my children for this potato. My older son can't do a lot of things he wants to do because of the younger's need for care and appointments. The final straw was I heard a sound. I went into younger son's room to check, thinking he had forgotten how to breathe again, and saw our older son hitting him and screaming, "You're why I don't have a mother. You're why I don't have a father. You're why I can't have friends over. You're why I can't be in sports. I didn't ask for you and I hope you die." Instead of being horrified, I watched. And younger son just did not react. No signs of pain or fear or upset. No reaction at all. He breathes but he is not alive. He doesn't know who I am. He doesn't know who older son is. He has no sense of self, life experience, or awareness of his surroundings. He doesn't need to be in my home. He doesn't know or care where he is. He is genetically my son but he is not family. My previously abused, brain-damaged cat who can't walk straight has more personality and is far more lovable than my child. In fact, I was looking forward to raising a Down's baby, even one with severe impairments, for that reason. With disability can come gifts. This boy is not a gift. He is a genetic mistake. I probably should have miscarried and would have definitely terminated if I'd known he would be like this. And the flip side is, if he has awareness, he's miserable, and there is nothing I can do. If he has likes and dislikes, no one knows what they are. If he is in pain, he can't tell anyone. If he wants anything, he can't communicate. He's had every imaginable therapy, nothing has made a difference. And so he's leaving our home on the 29th. I feel excited and relieved and then guilty because I know we'll be happier with him gone. He's already taken my husband and my son's father. He was working so much to pay for the cucumber's care. For the experimental therapies insurance wouldn't cover. Because this one was going to be the breakthrough. He was tired and defeated and disappointed. He sought counseling as well, but I don't think he could ever say the words "I don't want my son in my home" either. He's ruined my older son. I was so wrapped up on the younger I never realized how ignored and damaged he was. He lost his father too. I didn't just lose my husband. He is my priority now, and this malignant lump can be someone else's problem. At least they'll be paid a wage to care for him. At least they'll get a break from him when they punch out. I just want to never think of him again, and I'm not sorry. And for that, I'm sorry. Thanks for listening.
He didn't ask you.
I accidentally killed my brother. Throw away because a lot of people know that this happened to me. I'm going to leave out a lot of details too, just so it can't be easily traced back to me. I'm just living with so much guilt. I need to get this out because it's hard to talk about with people that I know. When I was 10, I had a little brother who was 2.5. We spent a lot of time with our neighbors because our moms were friends and they had 4 kids around the ages of my siblings. One day, we were exploring in the wooded area behind our houses and I found a huge rock. It looked like it had smaller shiny rocks in it. It wound up being a piece of cement with metal shards in it, and I thought it was pretty and wanted to take it home. Once we got back to our house though, our mom told us all to pack into the neighbor's car as we were going to Chuck E. Cheese. The rock was heavy, so I brought it with us rather than lugging it home. My neighbors had one of those huge vans that sat like 15 people and had shelves above the seats, so I put the rock in one of the shelves, and struggled to do so, as it was so heavy. Long story short, my baby brother sat below that shelf. At some point when the van stopped, the rock fell out of the shelf and crushed his little head. It wasn't super gory, but it was bad enough to have killed him right away. Right in front of my mom, me, my brother, sister, and our friends and their mom. At an intersection during a red light. I just remember my mom screaming, "Where did that come from?" and "Oh God, my baby," over and over again. It came out as a whisper at first, but eventually I was about to choke out an audible "me," and I'll never forget the look on my mom's face. It was a mixture of pure grief, knowing my brother was dead. Anger, because I had done something so dumb that it resulted in the death of her youngest child. And compassion, because I know she wanted to hug me and tell me it wasn't my fault. But she couldn't at that time. It was your fault. She's regretted it for years and has apologized to me over and over, but all she said at that moment was, "You killed your brother." I'm 26 now, and it's been 16 years since my brother died, and I'm still in therapy. My family has assured me every day since that it wasn't my fault and nobody blames me, and that's a sweet sentiment, but it was still my fault. It was an accident, but I still directly caused it. That sweet little baby is dead because of me, and I can't escape it. Watching my parents grieve like that was unbearable, and they still feel so much pain. I just can't stand the pain anymore. My whole life has been a wreck since then, and I can't seem to get myself on track. I'm a high school dropout who has to leave work at least once a month because of my severe and constant panic attacks. I have full days where I'm paralyzed and can't get myself out of bed. I feel like I should be dead, and not my brother. If you read all of this, thank you. It was hard to write. I just need the universe to know that I haven't forgot what I've done, and I want everyone to know that I'm so sorry. I'll never forgive myself, and I'll never forget. I regret having my child. I was married for 15 years to my high school sweetheart. We had 2 beautiful kids, 13 and 9. For many reasons, we divorced. Skip to me starting to date again a year later. I meet an amazing woman almost right away, first month of dating again. We have a ton in common. We fall in love very quickly. She tells me early on that she wants kids. I had never wanted more kids. 2 was more than enough for me. I had even made an appointment to get snipped later that year. But this woman is perfect for me, and having kids is a deal breaker for her. So I decide I could do this all again, for her, for us. I'm approaching 40 when we finally start trying. Due to some health complications, she's over 35, and has high blood pressure. We ended up having to do IVF. It worked, and we were pregnant soon afterwards. But our son was born prematurely. They warned us this was a possibility due to her age/health. He had to stay in the NICU for 3 months. My new wife developed postpartum due to the stress. We found out our son had cerebral palsy, a milder form, but he had it. Our world shifted from being a happy couple with a new baby to a depressed and stressed couple dealing with a child that has a lifelong disability. This is not how I perceived my second chance at happiness was going to be. I won't leave my wife, and I will love and take care of our son forever. But not a day goes by where I don't regret my decision to have more kids. I should have listened to my gut from the beginning and called off the relationship early on. She wanted kids, and I didn't.
Now you gotta take care of
but I did this for her.
Never wanted.
Now I'm depressed, financially strained, and my future isn't the relaxing one I pictured. I can never tell my wife this, of course, and I feel bad even writing this to all of you. But I just needed to get it out. I punched a girl in the face for kicking me in the balls. I was 16, at school, hanging out with my friends.
Nothing wrong with this.
That were not so much my friends.
Kicked you in the balls.
A couple of girls had a habit of kicking guys in the balls over BS, smallest disagreements, mutual insult throwing, or even for fun. I had warned them before that I would someday do something they ain't gonna like if they kept it up. Of course they had to put that to the test. Gotta see just how much you can abuse people before you give it up.
Just toot it.
So we were standing in a circle. Apparently I said something she disagreed with. Wasn't even an insult or anything. She feints to kick me in the balls. I tell her again, if she does that, something's gonna happen. She apparently takes it as a challenge.
Play too much.
Gives me the hardest kick in the balls I ever received. I collapse. Feel like dying, puking, crapping my pants, can't breathe, absolute agony. Some of my friends are concerned, scold her, some buttholes, including her, are laughing their butts off, while I'm trying not to break into tears. I stand up 5 minutes later, Feeling worthless, she's still
Rearrange
laughing.
your jewel.
I get the greatest rush of anger and emotional pain pent up over 2 years of those a-holes kicking me and other guys, including some of my friends, in the balls like we're less than dogs, and before I can think, my fist catapults itself into her ugly, laughing face. She collapses with blood streaming from her nose, wailing like a baby, as if she didn't like being put in so much pain that she collapses. Weird. Her like-minded friends look like they've seen a ghost, start screaming insults at me in sheer disbelief, and even though I was suspended for 2 weeks, and she got no punishment whatsoever, this was the most satisfying, liberating thing I've ever done, and I regret nothing. Got a reputation as a woman beater among some classmates, as if I randomly attack gentle, harmless girls, who actually deserve being protected, for the fun of it, but my friends stayed by my side, and no more balls were kicked after that. Would do again. Don't give a crap that she doesn't have balls.
That's why bullying gotta exist.
I slept with my daughter's ex-boyfriend.
Not a bitch never gonna bully again.
He got me pregnant and I had an abortion.
Ass.
They got back together and got married. This was back in, let me think, maybe 1997? I was 38 and my daughter was 18, and she was dating Harry, who was 24. I was an alcoholic and dabbled in other drugs, mostly cocaine. I was not a good person, let alone mother. Not like I was abusive to my daughter or anything, but I was generally inattentive and cared more about my alcohol and drugs than her, especially in her teen years. I am 14 years sober now. I disapproved of my daughter dating Harry, but I never told her why. He would flirt with me, constantly, and the age difference also creeped me out. Also, he was an alcoholic and drug user, just like me. She broke up with him over his alcoholism. Soon after she moved away, not too far, but regardless she didn't live with me anymore. Harry kept calling me and asking if we wanted to get drinks. I turned him down, but then one day he said he had a bunch of coke and I couldn't resist.
Oh my god.
He came over, we did the coke, and we ended up having sex. He was a very good-looking guy. He looked a lot like that ridiculous 80s Justin Bieber picture that was on the front page today. That is actually what made me think about him. For the next few months, maybe like 3 to 4 months, he would sometimes come over and we would have sex and do drugs and get drunk together. Any drug addict knows what that is like to have a drug addict buddy in that way. Then I got pregnant. I knew it was by him. I had sex without a condom a few times.
Tell me you put that little fetus on a necklace.
I never told him I was pregnant, and I went and got the abortion and kept it a secret. Anyways, I stopped seeing him after that. It was too weird. I also got sober, for like 4 months, before relapsing. Fast forward 2 years and my daughter contacts me and tells me that she got back with Harry, and that he is fully sober. I was mortified honestly. He was gonna tell her that we slept together, and she is going to hate me for life. They came over one day and said hi, and when my daughter was gone, Harry told me that there is no reason to tell her about what happened. I agreed. It's been 16 years of marriage on their part. They have a kid together. Harry got cancer, then beat it. I got sober. That's basically it. I don't see them very often. They live in Texas and I live on the East Coast. But whenever I go there is always that tension between me and Harry. It's literally the first thing that comes to either of our minds, I can just tell. Not like sexual tension, like why did we have to do that? What the hell is wrong with us? Kind of tension. I think about this often. Especially when I see my grandson. I always think that could have been my son if things had gone differently, but wow, what a disaster that would have been if I decided to keep that child.
Family would have been in shambles.
I killed an elderly man in front of his wife and basically his entire family. I haven't talked about this to anyone, even though it's been years. Even my closest of friends, minus the ones that were there.
Jesus.
One night when I was in college I was driving to get some liquor for a party my fraternity was supposed to throw the following night. I was taking a street I was very familiar with to get back to my house. It was dark but the street was lit with street lamps.
AJ, shut the fuck
I remember
up,
that I looked at my radio for a second, just a second, not very long at all.
Fuck your coast.
But when I looked back up to the road there was a man crossing.
That bitch is trash.
I didn't have any time to react. By the time I saw him he had already hit the gate of my car and bounced off his side. I remember screaming and hitting the brakes, and the wash of horror of what had just happened. I'll admit I had thought about speeding away, but I pulled over to the side and ran out of my car to check on this guy. When I got to him, his family was standing outside the restaurant he was leaving and they were all screaming and crying. He was laying on the side of the road with blood coming out his nose and mouth. Two other men were standing with him trying to see if he was alright and calling 911.
They just had
all I could say was I didn't see him. I was frantic by the time it had set in what I had done. I sat on the curb across from the family and listened to their crying in agony while we waited for the paramedics to arrive. I sat there and sobbed while two
Montana's
paramedics
known
took
for
him away in an
suicide.
ambulance. I don't believe
New
I've ever
Jersey's
cried so
known
hard and for so
niggas
long.
who
The
try
worst
to
part about all of it
tame
and what still kills me today
its
was
skin
that his wife
cancer.
came over to
Who
me
the
while I was
fuck?
distraught on
Fuck
that
you,
curb,
nigga.
sat next to me, placed her
Fuck
hand on
you,
my shoulder and
cuz,
said I
B.
was married to him for almost 50 years. We had a good life. Then she hugged me and said that she forgave me. After everything was said and done, it was ruled that it was an accident. I wasn't charged with anything and I had one of my friends pick me up from the police station. I went down a dark path the years after that. I drank heavily, dropped out of college in my senior year, and had to move back in with my mother and father because I couldn't hold on to a job. Even tried to kill myself with pills. It was a hard road to recovery, which I feel I am not fully recovered from, nor do I feel I ever will be the same. But eventually I got my life back in order, joined up with the Navy and saw a bit of the world, and now I'm on track to go back to college and hopefully finish what I started there. It took almost a decade, but I finally start to feel almost whole again. I'm back to hanging with my friends, and actually going out, so maybe there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I got a girl deported because we got into an argument. Years ago I was browsing Facebook one day and I saw a girl I went to high school with arguing with some other people.
I don't agree with
I was browsing through the comments and noticed they were all using some really incorrect terms and had some really bad misconceptions about the topic. I wanted to hop in there really quickly and just clarify the terms they were using and show them what terms they should be using so we could have an informed debate. She got so mad at me and told me that I was trying to discredit her and make her look stupid. She made a Facebook status about me in a long rant and was making some pretty hurtful claims. She then blocked me so that I couldn't respond to the claims. I made a fake account and added her as a friend again and found an old status that she made about how her parents illegally brought her over the border as a child. I submitted the photo of her status to a few government agencies and then finished out the school year and forgot about it. She never came back from summer break and some of her close friends mentioned that she had been deported with her family. I regret doing that because she couldn't speak Spanish because her parents wanted her to live here and truly be an English-speaking American, and now she is in a country that she doesn't know and she can speak the language well or at all.
You're crazy.
I make copies of other people's keys for personal use. Whenever anyone lets me borrow a key, usually to their house in order to pet sit, the first thing I do is go to Walmart and make a copy of that key for personal use after they ask for it back. I never break into houses and steal anything, other than food or maybe alcohol, but I love the feeling of being able to effortlessly enter a place I know I don't belong without anyone's knowledge. I have keys to multiple people's houses and a couple of buildings/garages from my old job.
This nigga tweaking.
I lie about having my university degree and it got me a great job. I went to an Ivy League university in Ontario, Canada right after high school. My marks weren't great, but they were good enough to squeeze me in. I spent most of my time in university partying rather than studying, but still managed to pass all of my first-year classes. In my second year I skipped a lot of classes and was very lazy with the coursework. My marks were terrible and I failed a couple of my courses. In my third year, about halfway through, I dropped out and got a job landscaping. I did that for a year when I realized it really sucked and I began to regret not trying harder while I was in school. I figured I would apply to jobs that would normally require the degree that I would have gotten. I had spent the few years in school. I was easy enough to make the timeline on my resume make sense, and although I dropped out, I had a decent knowledge of the area. The field I was attempting to enter is difficult start out and it took a few months of sending applications to get an interview. The company I got an interview with, my now current employer, is an internationally recognized name in the energy sector. I was extremely surprised to get my interview. One of the documentation requirements was university transcripts, and with an hour or two in Photoshop I had my proof of graduation. I sent in the papers with the other required information and never heard anything back describing any problems with my records. I ended up going through 3 interviews in the process and received a position. I have now been working with this company for almost 5 years. They provided all the necessary job training and nobody has ever questioned my education. I entered with a starting salary of $72,500 CDN, and received annual raises. Upon hiring me, I was told that the management staff was quite impressed with me through the hiring process and that they usually only hire applicants with minimum requirement of a master's degree. I basically pooped my pants every day while in the interview and training process, but now I don't really think about it ever. I didn't tell my university friends I faked having my degree. The only people that know I did this are my parents. I sabotaged my father's marriage because he cheated on my mother. When I was 4 years old, my father and mother divorced because he cheated on her. They had a really rough divorce and had lots of fights. Eventually the divorce was settled and my mother and father could move on. My father married his mistress, who I'll call Emily as to respect her privacy. My father was really happy with her, and me and my sister got a stepbrother and 2 stepsisters with whom we got along really well. Skip forward 2 years and Emily started acting different, and so was my father. Me and my sister often couldn't visit our father because he had to work, whilst in reality he was free. When me and my sister were there, we often weren't allowed to eat at the table, which 7-year-old me didn't understand. Eventually my father started becoming more distant. He didn't wish me happy birthday anymore and missed a lot of important milestones in my childhood, like learning to ride my bike or plays at school. When I was 9, my sister and I could only visit 4 days a month and had to sleep in separate rooms. I vividly remember that during one weekend that we were there I had accidentally broken a glass and Emily had turned furious. She sent me upstairs and had me take my socks, of which 9-year-old me found really weird. Then she showed me a piece of glass she held in her hand and said that this is what I deserved for my clumsiness. She pushed the shard of glass into the sole of my foot. I yelled and cried and tried to remove my leg from her grasp when I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was my father's hand. He was helping Emily do this. I don't remember what happened after that. Emily also got into a huge fight with my sister and had pulled her by her hair down to the basement. After these 2 occasions and a lot of verbal abuse, we decided to break all contact and tell our mother what had happened. We hadn't told her before because, well, he was our father. My mother knew this was serious abuse, but she was too afraid to alert the police since my father had threatened her with violence before. Skip forward another 5 years. I was 14 and a freshman at the same school my former step-siblings attended. Once I saw them, all the memories started rising again. My 2 stepsisters had become huge bullies and lots of people hated them. Me and a couple of friends decided to retaliate and secretly put small bags of marijuana in their backpacks. Apparently this had caused a huge fight in their home and my father and Emily decided to divorce. After this, Emily got into serious financial troubles and my father became an alcoholic. 2 weeks ago he was arrested for assault. Emily has allegedly become a prostitute and my former step-siblings have been brought into protective custody. This has all been my fault. It was my idea to put the marijuana in their bags, even though they hadn't done anything to me. I ruined the lives of my step-siblings and sent my stepmother and father into a downward spiral. Yet in some sick way I don't feel any remorse. My sister has been dealing with a severe eating disorder after all the verbal abuse from Emily and has been hospitalized twice. I've tried once to commit suicide because of my sexual orientation since I thought I was an abomination after Emily's conservative Christian rants. Now me and my sister are doing better, though we still have traumas. We've thought about starting a lawsuit, but because of our ages during the incidents, legal advisors have advised us to just move on. Anyway, I'm in a real moral dilemma. I did something that caused horrible things, yet I don't feel any remorse. Am I a psychopath?
No.
I mercilessly bullied 5 people in high school. 3/5 of them killed themselves.
You just made 3 niggas
I am in my
kill
40s now, and I don't deserve the life I
this
have.
nigga.
I stepped on the backs of my classmates to make myself feel better about myself. I was bullied harshly in school, and had the crap beat out of me on a daily basis until I hit puberty. Then I suddenly grew into a monster. I towered over everybody at school. I also channeled my anger into working out, and became even bigger. I was a huge ogre of a person. I hated everybody. I had so much angst built up from my own bullying.
Deserve the life he has.
My former bullies, being the manipulative cowards that they were, I see this in retrospect, but didn't see it at the time, befriended me. And we pretty much held a reign of terror over the school. I fed on the newfound respect from my former enemies. We preyed on the weak. There were about 5 nerds that I personally tormented harshly. I joined Facebook a couple months ago to see what became of them. I had hopes that they were able to live happy lives despite my awful treatment of them. One I knew died suspiciously in high school, but it turns out it was a suicide that was covered up. 2 more killed themselves right after high school graduation. The 4th lives alone in a trailer and appears to be crazy. The 5th person actually turned their life around and married the head cheerleader several years after graduation. So at least there's that. I wish I could apologize to the remaining 2, but it would be so trite and meaningless. Plus, it would probably re-traumatize them, having to see me again. Or having to think about those events again. I suck, I'm sorry, and sometimes I feel like I should off myself too. You know, to balance the scales of life. I have been tormented my entire adult life for being the bully that I was, when I really should have been an advocate.
Why
for the
he
bullied
saying
instead.
there's that?
I mean, I already knew how it felt.
He said there's
Instead
that.
of sticking
Nigga,
up
shut
for
up.
people and beating the
Yeah,
bullies.
he got the popular cheerleader that, like, come on, bro, who cares?
But I, like a weakling, joined them. I can never forgive myself for that.
Who cares?
Himself to death. This was in 1991. My son was 18 and going to a local college. Me and my wife considered ourselves sort of a normal New Jersey Italian Catholic family. We were traditional and fairly ignorant in most things. We hated the perceived feminization of culture. Images of drag queens in NYC and AIDS and the tight pants of modern kids made us recoil in horror. My wife found gay porn magazines in my son's room. I came home to her being angry. She was freaking out at him. I asked why and she showed me what it was. I felt my heart drop down into my stomach. It was like a punch to the gut. He was gay? It felt like the ultimate
shout out to Jersey. I see how y'all rocking. I see how y'all coming.
Betraying the normal.
I see how y'all coming. I see Jersey.
We had zero concept of the idea of being born gay. We thought it was something you made a choice to engage in, and once you did it, you couldn't stop. Everything that we had given him, a normal, religious, traditional home, with enough money to go to college and relative freedom to do what he wants, and he just threw it all away. At least, that is what I thought at the time.
That is retarded.
He was my only precious thing in the world, my son, the person who would inherit my family's name, the man who I raised from a child to be a man, but at that moment was the furthest thing from a real man in my mind I could imagine. I made the choice right then and there that he was no son of mine. He was just a sissy who happened to live in my house. I know how horrific this sounds, because it was horrific. And it was how almost everyone who lived in our community felt. We were constantly spewed with propaganda to hate gay people and ideas that the youth were all gay and experimenting and getting AIDS and dressing as women. The hair metal, men wearing makeup, David Bowie, the drag queens in New York across the Hudson, Freddie Mercury, the ridiculous clothing of the era, it all gave the worldview that the world was turning into some gay, womanly wonderland. Anyways, I barely even spoke to him. My wife was the one who did all the yelling. I just went red in the face and couldn't even look at him. She told him to get the hell out and go to New York to live with his friends, who she assumed were all gay, and she was right, mostly. She physically hit him, a lot, and got him to pack his stuff while he was crying and told him to get out. Me and my wife were just devastated afterwards. We went to church a lot. My wife told all the other families in the area and they were horrified at my son. I remember when we told our priest, who was a very nice, accepting man, about our son, he looked to be disgusted, but when we told him we kicked him out, he looked at us in disgust, or at least hid it a tiny bit. Living without my son hurt. It also made me rethink things over time. I still saw him almost as an inhuman person. To be gay, to me at that time,
what happened, bro?
was so sinful and horrific that it was impossible to truly consider accepting them as real, normal people. Me and my wife grew apart in the 6 months following my son leaving. She started to drink a lot, and she was a nasty drunk. She had a history of alcoholism. I knew how bad it could get. This was the worst I had ever seen her. We fought constantly over stupid things, and all I could think about was that when our son was here, we never fought. He always calmed us down. In the end, I got kicked out of my own home. She just told me to leave. I moved to New York to live with my brother in Bay Ridge. We got divorced officially a few months.
You let a drunk fat turkey neck bitch kick you out your own crib.
Later. She would die from liver failure 7 years later. I made the choice, a conscious choice, to find out where my son was. At that point my life was just in shambles and I was rethinking everything about how I viewed my religion, my life, and I was just so horribly depressed and lonely. Finding him was a nightmare of itself. It took 2 weeks of calling homeless shelters and asking around at them if they had seen my son months ago. I finally found him in an apartment in Williamsburg.
He doing good.
I saw him and apologized, and I told him that I am so sorry I kicked him out. Part of me was still in the same mindset as before. I was still a raging homophobe, but I tried to push that part away and just be with my son and ignore everything else. He was a severe alcoholic. My first thought when I saw him, sweaty and skinny and sickly looking, was AIDS. But no, it was alcoholism. It runs in the family. He said that it started soon after I kicked him out, and that he was horribly depressed and turned to drinking heavily. Even his roommates said it was a major problem. For the next 3 months I spent a lot of time focusing on getting him clean. I met his friends, about half of whom were gay, and we worked together to help him. He went to a detox clinic, he went to rehab. We spent a lot of emotional days together. I didn't want to lose him, even though just a year before I was desperate to get rid of him. The thought of him dying, right after this, because we kicked him out, it was just too much to bear. I made the decision that if he died, I would probably commit suicide after. But he would get clean, then relapse 4 months later, then get clean again for 2 years, then relapse again. Then he quickly recovered,
you put him down
and
this
he would
path.
never touch another drop again. Spending that time with my son, and seeing how he lived, and more importantly actually seeing how these gay men lived their lives, mostly completely normally, it completely changed me as a human being. In 1996, I went to my first Pride Parade with my son to support him and his boyfriend at the time.
W-Dad.
I took a heavy interest in the LGBT community and went with my son
That's
to visit
crazy
his
to
friends and AIDS
flip.
clinics.
I'm
If you
proud
were
of
to
this
have
nigga.
told me
I'm
in
proud of this
1991 that I would be going to an
proud
AIDS
of this
clinic
nigga.
with a drag queen and being friendly with everyone by 1997, I wouldn't believe you in the slightest. Anyways, this post has been days in the making. I love Reddit even if I am a bit old for it, haha. I have told my story before to a journalist and it
I
was
bet
published.
Carrie wishes his
If
family
you feel
was like
deja
this.
vu reading this, I would very much prefer if you didn't reveal my identity on this post or post the article. I used to bully my
W-Dad. Great father. You know, he fixed his wrong. He wrote his wrongs. He wrote his wrongs. Carrie, I hope you have that support system. AJ, I hope you do it as well. Seeing you raised Carrie to be this way. You know. I hope y'all, y'all had that. I'm sucking dick on my corner for a quarter. That's tough. That's tough. Life gonna get better for you. like